Hey guys, and welcome back to MotoringBox. This is going to be a bit of an off-the-cuff video because I want to address something about this TJ Magna Ralliart, which I purchased a couple of weeks ago, because there have actually been some accusations flying around some of these Magna groups on Facebook, suggesting that I've bought this car for some very unsavory sort of reasons. So if we have a look at this post here from Mr. Malven, he's basically suggesting that I bought this car purely for investment or collective purposes. And that, to me, can't be further from the truth. I tried to basically explain myself to this guy, and you may as well try and convince lesbians to turn straight again because it's just better. But in the end, you may as well just bash your head against a brick wall because it's not going to work. So before we delve into this cesspool of crap, which is this Magna Madness group on Facebook, let me run you through some of my previous car history. So firstly, I bought an NC Fairlane, and I actually bought that before I started this channel. I bought that car because it is a car I always wanted to own. I paid $5,000 for it. I kept it for 2 or 3 years, and I sold it for about $7,500. So $2,500 profit. But I estimate I spent about $3,000 or $4,000 on that car. I haven't tallied it up, but it is definitely more than $2,500. So I didn't buy that car to be a collector, to gain money, to make a profit, because I simply didn't. The next car I bought was my AU Fairmont. I paid $2,500. The current value of that car in its current condition is probably about $5,000 or $6,000 total. But I've spent about $5,000 or $6,000 on this car since I've bought it. And I'm pointing because it's sitting right here beside me. So if I sold that car today, I would lose a couple of grand minimum. But people in my Patreon, which you can join up and support me, actually were offered this car a couple of weeks ago when I was trying to sell it to fund another project. And I said to them, if anyone wants to buy this car for $5,000, it's all yours. Now, no one bought it, luckily, and I'm kind of glad about that. And money came about from other ways that allowed me to buy this car. But it just goes to show, again, I'm not in it for collection or for profit or anything. Now, the next car I bought was a BA XR6 Turbo, and you would argue that is a car you would buy for an investment, for a collection, for a profit-making exercise. I paid $8,200 for it, but I've spent all up, including the purchase price and all the money I've spent fixing and modifying that car, over $20,000. And I estimate the value of that car today is $15,000. So that doesn't work out either. So let's look at this car then. Why did I buy a TJ Magna Ralliart? Well, first and foremost, it's because I've had many hundreds of people in my comment section over the years saying, check out a Magna, they are fantastic. Like, people just rave on and on about how awesome these cars are. And that's where it started. It doesn't go any deeper than that. I'm not actually a very deep sort of analytical or sneaky kind of a guy. I just think, right, that'd be cool. People will like to see it, I'm going to buy one. And the funny thing about it is, this Malven guy said he knows damn well it's a collectible, it's his main reason. He wouldn't even look twice at a VRX. And to me, that is hilarious because I've spent probably the past year looking at VRXs. I had in my head that I wanted to buy a TJ VRX all-wheel drive. And they are pretty rare because they didn't make many of them. But I was going to settle for any sort of TJ Magna or KJ Verada, I think they are. The Magna or the Verada version in all-wheel drive, because I think as the only all-wheel drive sedan in Australia, that would have been a cool story, because to me it's all about the stories, right? So that's what I wanted. I wanted to find an all-wheel drive Magna in the good body shape, not the ugly, well, in my opinion, the ugly ones that followed. It had to be one of these. So I've been spending all my time in Southeast Queensland on Facebook Marketplace looking for one of those cars. But it's either come up at the wrong time or there's just not many of them around in general. So when they do come up, there was one for sale on the Sunshine Coast a couple of months ago. It was a white one. I think it was a Magna VRX. It had a Ralliart wing and it had that VRX body kit. So I thought it looked really good, but it was advertised for $5,000 and it had dents. It needed a lot of work. I saw little bits of rust on it as well. So that was a $5,000 car and I was almost ready to pull the trigger on that. And I probably would have if I had the money, but I didn't and it got sold. So that was out of the way. So while I've been scoping out Marketplace multiple times a day ever since, all of a sudden this thing popped up for $6,000. Now this thing obviously needs work, and to me that's kind of what I'm after because, surprise, surprise, I run a YouTube channel Imagine if I just spent 12 or 15 grand on a mint condition Magna, Ralliart, or any sort of Magna at all. What am I going to do with it? I want to actually fix things and turn a sort of dull looking turd into a sparkling diamond. That's what I do. So this thing popped up. It fit the bill. It was 6 grand. And as I mentioned in the video I published last week, it's a car I typically wouldn't go for. It's in a color I don't like, but it is warming on me, black. I typically like to go for cars that have mint condition paint and panel work because it is an expensive thing to fix. This car pretty much ticks none of the boxes that I would typically go for. But if you always go for the boxes and the cars and the things that you always like and you always go for, you're going to always end up with the same stuff. You're going to end up with an AU Fairmont gear. You're going to end up with a BA XR6 Turbo. And you guys have seen those cars for like the last 2, 3, 4 years. So this thing is a car out of left field. And I think that's probably where Malven has an issue with it, because he puts that I'm a Ford guy. And yes, I am a Ford guy. But Ford guys can drive other cars too. But he feels I'm not being honest. He doesn't feel that I've ripped off the guy that I bought this car. He reckons I paid a fair deal, and I would agree. These cars are rare, but for the condition, 5.5 grand, I reckon it's probably a decent amount of money to pay for it. And the speed which the car sold reflects that. See, this car was for sale or listed for about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, at 6 grand, and it didn't sell. And he placed a new ad, which is pretty much identical, for 5.5. And that ad then was on there for another couple of days before I thought, you know what? I cannot wait and hope that he drops it again in price. I need to go and have a look at it, because I always watch ads and I think, there's no way they're going to sell that car for that much. I'll wait, they'll drop it down, and then I'll go and have a look at it. But I've missed out on many, many cars by doing that. And I didn't want to miss out on this. So I went over, had a look at it. I thought for 5.5 grand, I can do something with it. And here we are. And to me, that's really what it came down to. It's my viewers suggesting that Magnas are awesome cars. That's the first thing. So why are all these people saying these cars are awesome? There must be something in there worth looking at. That's the first thing. The second thing is they are Australian cars. Mitsubishi have been making these in Australia since the mid-80s. I don't know a lot about them, but I want to learn about them. So it's right in my realm of interest. So here we are. If Malven is correct, and I've bought this purely because I knew, in his words, because he knew it was collectible. Let's play devil's advocate on that. So I've spent 5.5 grand on this car. I estimate, let's be honest, it's going to cost me about $10,000 to get this back up to condition. I've already ordered about $2,000 worth of parts. So that'll take me up to $7,500. We still need to get this car painted, which is probably, if you're going to get a good one, probably 5 or 6 grand minimum for the paint and panel work. And there's going to be other things that go wrong with a 21-year-old car. So I budget probably 10 grand in cost to get this thing back up to where I want it. You know, it's tires, it's lots of consumable items and lots of work. So let's just call it 10 grand. I reckon it'll be more, but let's call it 10 grand. So that brings us up to $15,500. Is someone going to pay 15, 16 grand for a car which is admittedly, hopefully in good condition by then, but is going to have 250, 260, 270,000 kilometers? Is someone going to pay, let's call it 18 grand if I'm going to make a profit? If that's the whole purpose of buying a collectible car, is to make a profit, right? Let's call it 20 grand. Is someone going to buy this for 20 grand? Is someone going to buy it for 18, 17 grand? Is someone going to buy it for 16 grand and I'm going to make 500 bucks? Like, I don't understand. I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not in this for the profit, and my track record shows that. If I was a guy who sort of fixed up cars and then flips them for profit, I'm doing the shittest job you could ever do with that. And it's going to continue, I guarantee it. So Malven's questioning my motivation. He can continue to question that. I'm probably going to leave this Magna Madness group because, I don't know, I'm not really getting anything out of it. I sort of had a really positive vibe when I bought this car. I really enjoyed the drive home. But he says, why hasn't he said the collectability attracted him? Is it because he doesn't want to seem to be about the money, just pretend to be amazed by the car? I didn't mention the collectability because that's not why I bought it. I was genuinely amazed by how this car drove, and that's probably because I live in cars in this era. I have a 2001 AE Fairmont. I have a 2004 BA XR6 Turbo. I've driven 90s Falcons all my life. I'm genuinely amazed by this car. I do not drive new cars. I probably wouldn't be if I had a Tesla Model S or I had a, I don't know, an FGX Sprint or something. I genuinely was amazed by this car. What do I need to say to get that across honestly? He's still waiting for an answer, so this is it, guys. I'm not in this for the profit. I bought this car because I loved it and it was available for a price that I genuinely thought was good. But this has tainted things somewhat. So let me give you my ironclad guarantee, a MotoringBox guarantee. In a couple of years' time, or whenever it is that I decide I want to get rid of this car, I will keep a tally of how much I spent buying it, doing it up. So for example, let's call it 15 grand. I bought it for 5.5 and I spent nearly 10 grand fixing it. If it's 15 grand what it cost me, I will sell it for less than that. 14, 14.5, 13, whatever. I'll sell it for less, I'll take the hit, as I really don't care. I've taken the hit on every car I've sold so far. And for whatever reason, if that doesn't work out, we'll crush it. See you next time.